Good evening, everybody. 7 o'clock. I'll call this evening's council meeting to order. I'm Mayor Brant Burrow, and joining me in the chambers here today, we've got Councillor Dan Downey, Councillor Henry Osterhoff, Councillor Eleanor Renault, Councillor Rob Smith, and Councillor Earl Brayton. Councillor Christina Eady is on leave right now, and we're also joined by some of our senior members of staff and support staff as well. And at present, we don't have anybody in the public gallery. Maybe that'll change in the next minute or two. Please note that the council chambers have reopened to the public. Meetings will continue to be live streamed and available for public viewing on YouTube. As part of the virtual public participation, if you have any questions regarding items on the agenda, please submit them by email to mail@ektwp.ca. Questions received prior to the meeting will be addressed during the public question period, which is limited to 15 minutes. We begin this regular council meeting by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin First People. We do so respecting both the land and the Indigenous people who continue to walk with us through this world. We'll move on to adoption of the agenda. I'm looking for a mover and seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Renault, seconded by Councillor Brayton, that the regular meeting of council agenda dated March 10th, 2025 be adopted as amended. All those in favor? Carries. Thank you. Does any member have a pecuniary interest with regards to any item on tonight's agenda? And if so, what is the general nature thereof? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on then to the adoption of the minutes from our last meeting. A mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Osterhoff, that the regular meeting of council minutes dated February 24th, 2025 be adopted. Any questions, corrections, discussion around that set of minutes? Not seeing any. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Move on to adoption of the committee of the whole minutes. I will note for anybody who's paying particular attention, there is an item on there, resolution number 005-25. In reviewing the video, we confirmed that discussion began eagerly without officially having a mover and seconder. So the outcome of the discussion was certainly very clear. We as council can't really modify another committee's minutes, really no different than, say, the library board or the planning committee or anything like that. So we'll send this back to the committee of the whole, which I recognize is all of us, but under different meeting circumstances, and we'll get that corrected at the committee level. So the motion here will be that the committee of the whole minutes dated February 10th, 2025 be adopted. I don't think it's as amended yet because they won't be amended. So we'll say that the draft committee of the whole minutes dated February 10th, 2025 be adopted. So mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Osterhoff, seconded by Councillor Brayton. Any discussion around that set of minutes from the committee of the whole? Seeing none, all those in favor? That carries. Thank you. We'll move on to items arising out of the committee of the whole minutes. The motion was that council receive and file correspondence items 1 and 2 from those minutes, and that council support correspondence item 1 from the Eastern Ontario Wards Caucus, as discussed during the committee of the whole meeting on February 24th, 2025. So I'm looking for a mover and seconder there, please. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Renault. Thank you. Any discussion around this item? Okay, don't see any. There will be a motion later in the agenda to deal with actually carrying out that particular recommendation. So with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Here. Okay, bear with me. This is that resolution that we just said that we would support. Fasten your seatbelts. Whereas the Canadian government is currently in negotiations with the United States government on their proposed and or implemented 25% tariffs on Canadian goods exported to the U.S. And whereas Canada's Prime Minister and Ontario's Premier have outlined several plans to combat the impact the proposed tariffs would have on Ontario, which focus on strengthening trade between Ontario and the U.S. while bringing jobs back home for workers on both sides of the border. And whereas the Canadian government has also outlined several ways to address the current relationship with the U.S., including establishing the Council on Canada-U.S. Relations to support the federal government as it negotiates with the U.S. on tariffs. And whereas trade between Ontario and the U.S. is very important to our residents and our local economies and requires all levels of government to work together in the best interest of those residents. And whereas according to data from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, across Ontario, municipalities are expected to spend between 250 and 290 billion with a B on infrastructure in the next 10 years. And whereas Ontario municipalities have traditionally treated trade partners equally and fairly in all procurements in accordance with our established international trade treaties. And whereas municipalities play a crucial role as part of the Team Canada approach to combat tariffs and support businesses in our procurement for capital and infrastructure programs. And whereas there are trade barriers between Canadian provinces and territories, therefore be it resolved that the Council of Elizabethtown-Kitley supports the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus resolution that supports the Canadian and Ontario governments on measures they have put in place in response to the proposed U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods, and ask that they take any and all measures to protect the interests of Ontario in any upcoming trade negotiations and ensure municipalities are part of the coordinated Team Canada approach. And that the Canadian and Ontario governments remove any impediments to municipalities preferring Canadian companies and services for capital projects and other supplies. And that the Canadian and Ontario governments take action to remove trade barriers between provinces as a response to U.S. tariffs and support Canadian businesses. And that the Canadian and Ontario governments remove all legislative barriers that impact the ability to buy local and indemnify municipalities should there be challenges to buying Canadian. And that the Canadian and Ontario governments continue to invest in infrastructure to provide stability, jobs, and support our community's social and economic prosperity over the long term. Be it further resolved that copies of this motion be sent to the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada. It may change by the time this goes out, if our new Prime Minister has been sworn in. The Honourable Melanie Jolie, Minister of Foreign Affairs. The Honourable Nate Erskine Smith, Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities. Doug Ford, Leader of the Progressive Conservative Party, now once again Premier of Ontario. Merritt Stiles, Leader of the Ontario New Democratic Party. Ronnie Crombie, Leader of the Ontario Liberal Party. Mike Schreiner, Leader of the Ontario Green Party. Ontario's Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade. Ontario's Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Rebecca Bly, President, FCM and Coordinator and Councillor in the City of Vancouver. Robin Jones, President of AMO and Mayor of Westport. Christian Lowry, Chair, Rural Ontario Municipal Association. Jeff Leal, Chair, Eastern Ontario Leadership Council. John Beddoes, Chair of the Eastern Ontario Mayor's Caucus. All regional members of Canadian Parliament and all regional Ontario members of provincial Parliament. Looking for a mover and seconder for all of that. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Rideau. Any further discussion on that item? Oh, good. I'm glad nobody asked me to repeat that. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you. All righty. So I believe we are now into staff reports. Yes, item 6.1. This is the report regarding our annual water quality from the City of Brockville. The motion is that report number A-25-12 be received, and the council received the Brockville Drinking Water System 2024 Annual Water Quality Report dated February 25th, 2025. And the council received the revised Brockville Drinking Water System 2023 Annual Water Quality Report, revised on December 16th, 2024. A mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Osterhoff. Any questions or discussion around either of these water reports? Okay, all those in favor? That carries. Thank you. Once again, the city is doing an excellent job for our residents connected to the water line. On to item 6.2. This is a report regarding the Lynn Banshell terms of reference for the committee. The motion is that council receive report A-25-13 and the council provide direction on the Lynn Banshell committee draft terms of reference. A mover and seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Brady. Any discussion around this item? So if there's no discussion to our administrator, do you have sufficient direction in what's being proposed? If council is just satisfied to let it stand as is? Oh, I see Councillor Osterhoff. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I mean, how do we invite residents to be part of this committee?
think it's a standard advertising process that we would go through, like a vacancy on any committee, or at the beginning of the term as we try to populate all the committees, but so maybe we look
Public announcement saying we're looking for.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess we've got two questions for you now, Mr. Administrator.
Well, thank you, Your Worship, and that was probably going to be my question as well. How do we want to proceed with this? We have given some pretty tight timelines for this project. We want to have it completed this summer. So I would maybe ask that councillors who have people or friends who would be suitable applicants to this committee, maybe give them a little bit of a nudge. We'd like to make sure that we have this committee up and running relatively soon. I know that we have had one company that provides engineering services who've already come forward and said they'd be prepared to do something in kind work. Been speaking to our chief building official and a building inspector. They also know of some other companies that would like to do some in-kind donation. I think what we'll probably be looking for is some cash contributions. So this committee's real focus will be on generating some funds to be put towards this, but would like to get them up and running relatively quickly so that we can move on with the project.
Okay, so what would you suggest is a reasonable window then for people to be able to respond? I'm just looking at a calendar here, a meeting cycle. Do you suppose to have responses back such that we can actually officially populate that committee by council? The first meeting in April would be April 14th, I believe. Would that be soon enough to satisfy you?
I think that would probably work.
So submissions would have to be in by the Wednesday prior to that, at the latest, probably the Tuesday, I would think. Yeah. Okay. So we're basically setting a deadline of April 8th for submissions to sell. Okay, Councillor Braden.
Yeah, should we pick our councillor tonight?
Yeah, we can certainly get that far. See if I don't know which councillor might be interested. So I presume you would allow your name to stand for that committee, Councillor Smith?
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay, and any objections to having Councillor Smith be the representative on that committee?
Was that the suggestion Mr. Councillor Brayton was thinking of?
I'm assuming.
That was it.
I just want to be sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You keep worrying about me.
And here I thought it was me who was suggesting.
Well, so
Thanks, Henry.
I will seek other interests if there are any. Not seeing any hands eagerly going up, so I guess you're it, Councillor Smith.
Thank you.
All right.
If you don't like that, that's
Yeah, go ahead.
I would perhaps ask Councillor Smith to reach out to the individual who's looking to make a donation and to confirm whether they're interested in sitting on the committee as well.
I will now.
Okay, fair enough. Any other discussion around this item? Okay, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 6.3. This is the annual statement of the treasurer regarding remuneration. The motion is that report F-25-04 be received for information. Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Down. Any comments or questions around this report? Councillor Smith, that's item 6.3. So,
Thanks. That's remuneration.
go ahead, Councillor Smith.
So I know this is just a report, but in the previous meeting, we had the comparisons from other municipalities. Is it my assumption that we're discussing increasing, or is this just an FYI, or is it coming all back to us again, or?
I think at this point, this is an annual.
Oh, this is our annual?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is an annual required
Oh, I
report.
got a question then.
Okay. Fair enough.
I'm sure Councillor Lewis-Ross already asked. The 1280, where's committee and board?
You asked me. I'll give you a tongue-in-cheek answer.
Go ahead.
I work hard. But I'm on 3 committees.
Oh, okay.
And it just,
It adds up.
pardon me,
When you're working, yeah, it adds up.
it adds up.
Well, I just know that There was an error last time. I was just wondering.
Yeah,
There was an error again,
Okay, that's fine.
and it's corrected
Oh,
now.
that's fine. I'm just joking.
yeah, so I believe that the one that we have in our package now is the corrected version. Yes, that's
Laura said that. And we're gonna-
Yeah. so, perfect. Okay, Councilor Brayden?
I think if we are thinking about getting it, increasing it, well, that's for generally 4 meetings a month. I know there's a township and they make 7 something, but they only have 1 meeting a month. So it's not a true picture of what the meetings are, like if there's, if you have 4 meetings and get so much money, or you have 1 meeting and you get so much money, so it's, you gotta get your head working to figure that out.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point, and I believe it was at the last meeting, our administrator brought quite a comprehensive report comparing ourselves to those in the region on a number of metrics. And there was some confusion at the start of this whole process. The intention was for it to include committees, review of committees, remuneration structure as well. That was prompted by the formation of the police services board and its rates being, so different. So I know that our administrator is working on a report to bring back to council regarding the committees. And then once we have the whole picture, I guess, whatever council's appetite is to discuss all of that, we can proceed with it at that point. Any other questions or discussion around this item then? No. Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried, thank you. So on to item 6.4. Here, this is, yes, the borrowing scenarios for capital projects. I will note that we were given an updated table by email and also printed out this evening. The addition to that was if all 3 bridge projects that we've been talking about are lumped together and funded in the same timeline, that's where the additional 2.84 million subtable comes in over the various 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30 years. So just want to make sure that everybody has that current information as we begin the discussion. So the motion here is that report F-25-05 be received for information. So I'll get a mover and seconder, and then we can begin discussions. Moved by Councilor Brayton, seconded by Councilor Downey. Does staff have anything they wish to add to this before council begins its discussion?
I just want to note that the interest rates were also updated, and I got the updated, they've gone down a little bit again since January when this was initially done.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they have some decisions to make. Now, the other thing is too, these numbers are based on an annual repayment. When I plunked them in, I said we were gonna pay 1 payment annually. If we do 2 payments annually, these numbers reduce. So this is worst case scenario. They can be massaged down by extending the terms, changing the payment term.
And it looks, if I looked at this closely enough and correctly, I think the approach for these tables is based on amortization rather than serialization.
Yes.
Is serializing an option for us?
It is an option,
Okay,
and the interest rate's slightly lower. The trouble is, it's not the same amount every year. It goes down, and
Yep.
I just like the annual amount to be the same.
Yep.
For budgeting purposes, it makes it much easier.
sure, that's fine.
Also, I investigated the construction loan portion of it. So to debenture these loans, it's about a 2-month process, and you and I worked through this in 2020.
Yep.
You've got lawyers involved, you've got all sorts of stuff that has to come to council and get approval. For the construction loan, we can say, we can apply to have 284,000 in construction loan. And what happens is
Did you mean
You-
284,000? 2.84 million?
284 million.
Yeah, yeah.
2,840,000.
Now we got it. Okay.
We can apply for that, And then, and this is strictly for cash flow. If council decides to do all three bridges at once, it could present significant cash flow problems, because we don't have that kind of money just sitting in the bank. So we would need to set it up, so we have this construction loan, which is at the 3.52%. And we pay the interest only monthly on any amount we draw down on them. So, if we were starting to run into trouble and, the taxes haven't come in, but we gotta pay some significant bills toward the construction, I can go to IO and have the money relatively quickly, within a few days, and then we don't have a cash flow problem. But as soon as we draw on it, we pay the interest on it the next month. If we took the total, if we needed June 1st, we needed 284,000, our monthly payment would be $8,000 a month. It's strictly monthly interest. So at the maximum, that's a $50,000 by the end of the year. If we do 2,884,000 on June 1st, then we would pay 50,000 by the end of the year. If council chooses to do something like that, we need to keep that in mind and probably have a little wiggle room in the budget. Sorry, not wiggle room. We need to budget for what we expect might happen if we do all three bridges.
Okay, and just before I open the floor, and then I'll get to Councilor Smith and we'll get into the discussion. I took the liberty of setting up a spreadsheet based on all the numbers that we got late in the day. So if council gets to the point where it wants to ask questions about some what if scenarios, I'll be able to give you numbers if you want to do one bridge over 10 years and another bridge over 15 and that type of thing. I'll be able to give you some answers in real time around any type of that discussion. So with that, I'll go ahead and we'll let you start, Councilor Smith.
Thank you. So a little bit of both, basically what you just touched on. So looking at this 3.52%, this interest rate, okay? So was that over a certain period of time, or you just borrow that 2 point some million and that's your rate?
No, you set it up to be able to draw on it. You apply for, we at some point think we are going to borrow 2.84 million to cover these bridges.
Okay.
In the meantime, we need a little help for cash flow. But we're not sure at the end of it if 2.84 million is going to be the exact amount when we debenture. So it's a good tool because you don't want to debenture until the project's done and you know exactly what you need to borrow, right? So they just set this up at the 3.52. So if you need $100,000 to stop yourself from going into overdraft, then I can have access to that and put it in the bank. And then we're only paying 3.52%. That's the annual rate. You would divide that by 12 to get the monthly rate. So on $100,000, it would be not very much money. Like a couple $1,000, if that, a month. On only what you've drawn on.
So if I'm reading that, so if we set our payback period, then is that correct?
Well, they just leave it open. I'm not sure if there's a limit to how long you can leave construction open. The actual, when you nail it down and do the debentures, that's when everything comes into place on how long you want to borrow this. You could get to the end of it and say, oh, we have a surplus. We have a surplus this year. Let's not borrow money for this and only borrow what we need.
I believe there are some limits to the construction and that gets set up when you
Probably.
set up the construction loan,
Yeah.
because otherwise they wouldn't want you with an open construction loan for 30 years.
No,
When the 30-year rate is 4.41, not 3.
That's
they
what I'm
have to
getting.
anticipate you're gonna be done within a year or two or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, so the construction loan is meant to do exactly that, get you through the construction period until you know down to the penny what all the costs are, and then you convert that into a longer term venture with.
It also is not a static rate. That rate can change from month to month. It's what it is today. But when we go to borrow, it might be different than 3.52, and then it might change the next month. Based on whatever, it's a variable. rate.
Is that it for now, Councilor? Okay. Councilor Mill?
That just sounds like line of credit.
Yep.
Okay, well, Brian, you just say that. You go line of credit until you're ready to, yeah, okay. That sounds reasonable. But I do have a question. Okay, so we go for the whole shebang. We're gonna pay for it over 10 years, or maybe 15, I don't know. How much? What percent would it be on the tax rate that we would have to raise each year to make that payment?
So let me tell you that the 1.5% increase that we do based on our asset management plan equates to about 115,000. So there's a couple things. If you decide to go full kit and caboodle, if we do the 15 years at 255,000 will need to be added to the capital budget. Okay. We can do 1.5 add 100,000 this year, just so we have it going towards reserve, and then do another 3% next year to bring it up to the approximate $250,000 level, and then go back to the 1.5 each year after that. But you have to start somewhere to get the budget up to a level where you can accommodate this, because otherwise other projects we're gonna have to take it out of the roads construction or somewhere else in order to compensate for it. So we really should be, because we have never really spent a lot of money on bridges. And this is the money we're intending on spending on bridges. If council decides they want to borrow for all three bridges, it sets it up so you are spending that 250,000, and then when the loans are paid, that 250,000 can continue to just go into reserves for replacement, or maybe we're ready to do another bridge and borrow again, and that money's there. So you don't have to increase it in future years. So let me tell you something else. Right now, or as of the last meeting, we were sitting at 6.95 on our total deficit. The county has essentially passed theirs, and that equates to a 5.11% on the tax rate. So right now, overall, we're sitting at 5.46% increase on the budget this year, which is $136.89 on the 202 median assessment for this year. If you add 100,000, your overall increase will be 6.14. 6.14. Just food for thought. I'm just trying to feed information to give you tools to make decisions.
And again, as we explore timelines and so on, one of the things I did in the spreadsheet was figure out what that impact is as a percentage of the levy. So
Yeah.
I can answer that. question.
115,000 is 1.5 direct hit.
Okay, so if you put it off a year or two, the price that it is today might have tripled in 2 years. So we found out with every single road that we've put off over the years, the next time when it comes up and we go to do it, it costs us
Way more money.
way more money because either the asphalt is more, or the gravel's gone up, or there's a fuel surcharge. So really, the longer you put it off, the more it's gonna cost you, whereas this, you've done it. You know what it's gonna cost you, now you just have to,
Because you're paying for the.
and the interest rate.
But you've got your safe bridges.
Yeah,
It's an immediate concern for a couple of them, so do it now, pay the interest, or wait, and then pay higher costs to do it, but
Then the engine.
In the meantime, your bridges are, not safe.
Name it a 5 ton.
Lynn is a 7-ton.
So, okay, so you got two bridges that have a limit. If somebody goes through one of those bridges that is less than,
It'll cost way more than 2.8.
that's what I was thinking, because somebody would get sued, and I'm kind of thinking it would be us.
Be bankrupt.
And it would take a lot more than this bit of money to satisfy that lottery.
So I've got Councillor Downey next and then Councillor Brady. Go ahead, Councillor Downey.
Well, first of all, I like the idea, whatever money is borrowed for a construction loan, just in case. The costs, we find cost savings between now and the end of the job.
Yeah.
But if you take, so say we do, say the amount that's borrowed is 2.84 over, say, 15 years. So basically $250,000 extra dollars every year. Added to our, what approximately is our fire call loan repayments a year? Just ballpark.
I believe the fire hall is 115.
115, so 255, say 475. And then the deficit from this year, there was a carry forward amount, and then there was 300,000, right? There was 300,000 that we were gonna bring fund out of reserves.
There was 187,000 in construction overages, which we were carrying to be paid back at a later date.
Right,
I believe at the last council meeting, we decided to use 30,000 from somewhere
yeah,
to pay some of that back. But you are right, if we, find some savings, then that can be paid back as well.
yeah, but so I'm just thinking, like, say, for example, next year and going forward, we have to deal with that. And so I'm kind of wondering, like, cash flow, how does that play? How's that going to play into it? Are we going to end up, stretching it out for 20 years, 25 years? That's the type of questions that I kind of would like to get my head wrapped around, even though I probably won't vote on both bridges, but just a little more information, because I know you're talking about some other capital expenses next year that might require the borrowing. For example, if we do the garage, the wheel loader. So I'm losing track of what we can afford is more or less what I'm kind of losing track of that when we start adding these up.
Maybe I can provide a small item of perspective to help a little bit with that. I know you asked about the fire hall, and so the answer you got was correct and accurate. I'm going to presume what you really want to know is what is the total debt that we're paying, because we also did a debenture for the salt dome in Toledo as well. So to be fair, I think the answer that you're really looking for is 151,109. That's what we're paying as regular
Salt
annual
dome.
payments for the salt dome and the fire hall.
Which is already part of our capital budgeting too. It's
Yeah.
budgeted every year.
That amount's in there.
So I guess that was the point that I wanted to make, was that's now baked into the budget. So from a cash flow point of view, other things happen in the operation that land us in a deficit like they did last year, that's fair. Once we accommodate this, whatever this ends up being, or the fire hall or what have you in the budget, then the budget is set now perpetually to be able to afford that, because it's baked in. It's really no different than if we created a new position in our org chart. That now becomes an annual expense for that employee and their wages. It's built into the budget, and therefore, once the decision is made that it's affordable, then it's baked into the budget to afford it, for that time. So I don't know if that helps or not, but I just wanted to make sure you had accurate numbers for what I think you were really asking.
Well, go ahead.
It was kind of why I was suggesting maybe putting 100,000 in this budget And then next year, when we do the 1.5, it'll come up with the other 100, well, about 115,000, maybe a little more next year, which almost covers the 250. So, you
Well,
know,
we're still not addressing the carry forward either.
no, we're,
So it brings me back to, the line, the Kitley Line 9 box culvert, job. And Royal mentioned that there might be a possibility to do that in-house. Is that something that, you've given any more thought to?
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor, you consider it. I'm still waiting for the engineering report to give me the information to be able to present it to you. I can tell you that they've completed the hydraulic analysis and it's near now. So the geotechnical investigation has been completed, the hydraulic assessment report has been completed. Consultant is now completing the HEC-RAS for the hydraulic problems, just in case you know what that is. That's the Hydraulic Engineering Center River Analysis System. It's developed to assist in channel flow analysis to correctly size the options for the pipes so that the prospect can get a true representation of what they should be putting in, culverts, like for like, or cylinders, other structures. So, but I don't have that. We met with the consultant first or second week of February, and he had a family emergency that took him away to the country, so he was behind a little bit in some of his work. So he's anticipating getting to us at the end of March or the first week or two in April. But I can't really speak to that. We are still considering the options of culverts. Again, we're just waiting for this analysis before I can do the proper answer.
Because there's a lot of local residents that, and farmers who really, a lot of those farmers on that road especially are, they're excellent with drainage. They come up with a lot of answers, and they think that maybe we're possibly letting that project mushroom. And so I'm wondering if there's a balance there that, you know, possibly meet with some of those landowners around there and discuss some of the ditching and maybe compare what you find out in a meeting with some of them people with the engineering report when it comes in, and make a better decision that might save us some money. That's what I'm after.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. And absolutely, and just unfortunately, I'm not really prepared to speak to plan presidents. I wanted to bring all three, but I don't have a report to be able to give you the information. When I do get it, I definitely will bring it back to council and have those discussions.
So what would the process be if, say, some local, say, Tackaberry or some of the farmers wanted some input into some of that work, just giving ideas, what would the process be? Could you just go and meet them on the side of the road, or is that something that's done in the council? How would you see something?
Maybe to our minister.
Thank you, Your Worship. My preference would be that it be handled by staff. So let staff who are experienced in this rather than coming and trying to negotiate it through council. I would also, I guess, give a bit of caution in that, you know, we are relying on engineers because they are providing us with their expert opinion. While a landowner or a farmer may have some experience, we need some coverage from a liability perspective that the engineers and professional engineers would give us. So I'd be a little bit cautious if we were reliant on the landowner for some input that then caused problems in the future. We wouldn't have any liability, or we would be accepting all the liability because we relied on non-expert in doing so.
Well, I understand that. I'm just more or less saying that maybe some extra input might be a better way to move forward.
And I guess to expand on what Councillor Downey is saying, what I'm hearing him, it starts to resonate when we had the engineers here in the first round this week before we talked about the Lynn Valley Road Bridge, and they presented us with, you know, couple of cement box culverts, and it was a fairly elaborate thing. And then we started to engage a little bit back and forth, and well, could you not do culverts? Well, it might take 3. So we challenged them to go back and see, is there a less expensive option, non-box culvert and so on? And they came back to us with it's not a traditional culvert, I forget what they call it, it's a different shape. But anyway, they did come back with us, to us with another option based on that sort of feedback from us. So I sort of see this in a similar vein, so go ahead.
So my recommendation would be that the staff were obviously waiting for the engineers to come back and to come back with their recommendations, but maybe as part of that process, we meet with the landowners and some of the residents in the area to get their input, which can be part of that staff report as well, so that you can have the engineering feedback, but also what maybe some of the local residents are considering as options.
All right.
Yeah.
I've got, okay, if that's with regards to this, Council.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I'll go ahead and
It's
allow that. Then we
basically,
got Councilor Brayton.
is value added. Yeah, we have to go by the engineers, but, listen to some of the residents, there might be something else. We know what engineers do, but we have to go by them. Something ever happens, hopefully we're gonna fall back on them, but, it's always value added when you talk to the people.
Councilor Brayton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, a few years ago, I kind of suggested that we should have a engineer on retainer. And our CAO at that time was Rob, before that time. But anyway, she said it wasn't possible to have a retainer for a engineer. I couldn't understand the rationale because we have a lawyer on retainer. And I think that I get the idea, if you need something from a lawyer, you reach out for the phone, you phone them up and say, hey, Joe, well, this is what's going on and what can I do? You tell them, you hang up, you go do it. And I think it would have been beneficial to this township to have a backup engineer. Pretty handy, but why we couldn't have it, I don't know, but anyway, that's a little story. These 3 bridges have been identified that we need to replace them. Reader Lakes is going to look after half of one. And our roads department said that hopefully we could put culverts in and look after the second bridge. The Lynn Valley Bridge is gonna be fixed. So if somebody can tell me how much money, it's nice to borrow the money and I would be all for it. But how much money do we need? I haven't heard of a solid figure, and it hasn't got to be right to the dollar, but when your budget's in, you got to budget something. And I would be for borrowing the money, fixing the 3 of them, and going forward. That would be behind you. That's all you got to do is pay for it.
So,
And I think that we can. I like that first idea that our finance person had. I can't even tell you what it was now, but I kind of liked it at the time. But anyway, I think that we've got to do something. We've got to get on it, and we've got to get off of this. And this has been going on we've been putting it off for 2 or 3 years. And how long can you put it off? How long do you want to put it off? And like people are saying, if you don't do it this year, next year is going to cost you more money, and it goes on and on and on. And let's just get at it and fix it and take our lumps and bruises and be done.
So I can answer your first and your second. The first question was, you hadn't seen the solid numbers. They're coming up in the next 2 reports. We wanted to talk in general about the impact of borrowing and bring it all together, so that then as we talk about each bridge, we have the larger picture. So you're about to get your much more accurate numbers in the next 2 reports. And the idea that the Director of Finance had presented to us was, given that we now know our budget impact to our taxpayers is not going to be quite as bad as we feared it would. There may be some room if we have the appetite to do this, to take an extra 100,000 in this year's budget towards the repayment, and then next year when we add the 1.5 that we normally do as part of our asset management, we're going to come fairly close to being able to pay the payments for a debenture on the full amount if we choose to do all three bridges. So that's what the idea was.
Well, close, as long as we get close. When you make a payment, once you're close, other people are satisfied, right? Yeah,
Well, it leaves a little bit to deal with in next year's budget.
but I'm fixing the three of them, be done with it, get them behind you and over the month, let the traffic go.
Councilor Downey?
More along what, Councilor Brady was saying, I'm finding in industry that more and more large companies, 3M, Bell Canada, they are very reluctant nowadays to engage engineering companies, engineering firms. They can't afford it. The price for engineering and what you end up with seems to be very out of touch. And what Earl mentioned there, like I'm wondering if people like, we have the Miller Group possibly giving us some education on different road services. I know they build bridges. I'm willing to bet that they have engineers on staff that they consult with. And there might be different ways of looking at some of these bridge replacements to get the price down by talking to people, more people, different companies that do that work, rather than just, going out. All companies know what your budget amount is. They bid towards that amount. We don't know, if the engineers have inflated those dollars, but I can tell you that there ain't many companies that will go under what you budgeted. And there's potentially large savings to explore more avenues and get the same thing in the end.
Okay, anybody else? All right, so I guess probably the best thing to do, rather than try and nail down what we're going to do before we finish discussing in detail the two bridges that we can deal with tonight, I'm going to suggest that we move on from the list. I think there was a motion to receive this as information. So I'm going to suggest we call the question. The discussion seems to have reached a logical conclusion. Move on to the next two reports. And I'm going to suggest, rather than try and make a decision around one bridge and how we're going to finance one bridge, I think we need to keep this larger picture in mind as we deal with each of these two reports, and then come back and sort of provide some direction to staff. Is that copacetic for everybody? To our
Just
Director of
one thing
Finance?
to note, I'm not sure if it was conveyed, but we have a $500,000 amount in there for the bridge. We don't have all the information. But what I heard Royal say was he is investigating different options, and he's asked the engineers to provide prices on doing the various scenarios to keep the costs down. That's what we do. We look for ways. I can appreciate talking to the public, but you have staff that have the expertise. You have the engineers who have the expertise. Okay, maybe there's some value added talking to the neighbors on certain things, but when you go out and ask them how to build a road, that's why you have staff.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to call the question on receiving this report and then move on to the next two more detailed reports. So all those in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you. So that brings us to, here. That brings us to item 6.5. This is report PW 25-03 regarding the Town Line Road Bridge replacement. The motion as it sits right now, and we can defer this if we want to or whatever, but as it sits, it would be that staff report PW 25-03 Town Line Road Bridge Replacement Engineering and Design be received for information. and that council approve staff to proceed with the replacement of the Kitley South Elmsley Town Line Road Bridge in the 2025 construction season. And the capital expenditure of $650,000 even be funded through a debenture from Infrastructure Ontario, with the understanding that that final number may be less than that, but the debenture will reflect what the project actually costs. So this would be, the 650 would be for the construction loan and ultimately to be the debenture. So that's the motion as it's presented. I'll look for a mover and seconder, and we can amend it or whatever we need to do. Moved by Councilor Smith, second by Councilor Osterhoff. And so now with the motion that's on the floor, I guess, Mr. Metcalf, if you want to present the information to us. Yeah, by all means.
This good, excuse me. Good evening. Thank you. Tonight, you'll be discussing the important topic of investing in the future of the infrastructure, specifically bridge replacements. What I'm about to say kind of applies to both reports because they're kind of sister reports. They're one and the same. So most of the information is interchangeable. The condition of our roads and bridges directly impacts the safety, convenience, and overall quality of life for both current and future residents. Replacing and maintaining vital structures like Kitley South Elmsley Town Line Road Bridge and Lynn Valley Creek Bridge are necessary steps in ensuring that we continue to support safe travel and the movement of goods and services which are integral to the prosperity of the township. Is it an expense or is it an investment? Rather than seeing it as an expense, infrastructure investment creates a foundation of economic development, ensures service continuity, attracts business, and improves quality of life for the township residents. Investing in infrastructure is never a small task, but it is one that pays long-term dividends. Replacing aging structures today will not only protect the current residents, but will also lay up the foundation for continued growth and development in the future. With strategic planning and thoughtful financing, you have the opportunity to distribute the cost of these important projects across both current and future residents. By financing the costs, those who will most benefit from the replacement of the bridge, the residents who will use it today and for many years to come, will also contribute to the funding in a fair and sustainable manner. The recommended approach for these projects is moving forward with option one in both reports, which offers a balanced solution. It allows us to complete the work in the 2025 construction season while spreading the financial impact over time through the debenture process. This ensures we maintain fiscal responsibility while also investing in the township's transportation network for all current and future residents. Ultimately, by making this investment, we are enhancing the safety and efficiency of our roads today while preparing for a brighter, stronger future for the community. Thank you, and I look forward to your discussion and decision on these important matters. So now we'll roll into the presentation. I did this in two ways. I did a written report and I did a PowerPoint presentation because I was trying to give you the full picture, and on a small 8.5 by 11, it's sometimes hard to contain all the information. So next one, please. So the Kitley, so as you hear, this is the all right, so this is the approved option that you guys looked at back at the November 18th meeting. I will note there's been a few additions to the original design that was presented for the option one and option two, which I'll cover in the next slide. Here's the updated general arrangement for the twin cell CSP arch culvert. Just a thing to note would be the additional road width. We increased the road width to a standardized cross-section width of 3.2 meters with a standard 1 meter shoulder. As you can see, I meant to bring a pointer and I didn't, apologize. In these lines here, this is the existing road width, and then we're widening it out so they can accommodate full width. Because with the assessment through the engineer, because of the water crossing, will require guide rail installation, and each end has to have an attenuator because when you view it from Transport Canada standard, it is each end is considered an approaching end on both sides because of the narrow width and the speed of the road. This posted for 80 km/h zone. So those are a couple of additions that were not at the November meeting. Here just shows the typical cross section and a profile view for the design. As you can see, it's the same double arch. So in the consideration of the new CSP arch culvert crossing, the engineer has to come back and confirm we may have to do a small grade raise. We're actually in the process of discussing it with Bell Canada because there's a line that crisscrosses right after the culvert. So we may have to raise the grade here by about 0.5 meters, which then would be lost through the widening transitions. Where Bell may have to relocate or move their wire up. So just something to note as well in the process. Next slide, please. As you can see here, I've created a critical path to follow through for the design and permitting, the construction, the tender and award and the construction. And as of today, we're sitting at the conservation review stage. The Conservation Authority, we've met with the RVCA, we've submitted the documentation. We're waiting for their comments back so that we can incorporate it into design. The initial discussion went well. They didn't see any big red flags, but they want to review all the data because there's a lot of information on the backside that you don't see in these slides that they need to confirm. One of the things that it needs to be looked at is this creek is considered a warm water fish habitat, so for spawning and things like that. So it has a bit more of a complexity to it. So the critical end date on this slide would be May 22nd, because that's when we'd like to have your confirmation and be able to issue the tender publicly. It's a pretty critical date because if we don't meet that date, it kind of throws the rest of the timeline off. Next slide, please. Then we have the tendering and award phase. We would issue the tender on May 22nd. The tender would close on June 20th. And then we'd have hopefully anticipate to have the contract award for July 21st. There's a few pieces in there. We would come back to council. You guys would be able to have a chance to review the tenders, and possibly negotiate if there's any cost savings or changes in method that, maybe worked out at those times. The idea would be to have the contract award for July 21st. Sorry, there was one point, sorry. Yeah, no, right here, no, this is good. There is a date, I apologize. June 20th is the date that we have to look at on both projects because they're CSP arch culverts. We have, in discussion with 3 material suppliers, due to the current geopolitical situation, the materials supply might be could be 4 to 6 week lead time to get the CSP arch culverts. So we may possibly have to look at a pre-commitment for the materials, just for the pipe materials or the culvert materials on June 20th to secure delivery for the week of August 10th to August 15th. Because that's critical to have the materials on site on hand to be able to have the project closed out for November 15th. Next slide, please. And here's the construction phase. So we're allotted about 30 days for each section. The idea would be we would award the contract July 21st. They would mobilize within those first couple of weeks, have everything demolished and ready to go, and be installing the new culverts by August 15th. Aiming for a October 31st substantial completion with the remainder of 30 days with the project close out at November 30th. So the month of November would be for deficiencies and any cleanup areas. Next slide. I know there's some questions through the process of getting to the numbers. The initial estimate that was presented was a Class D estimate. I'll let you guys read the description between a Class D and a Class B. The original was 1.2 million, or our share would be 600,000. The latest Class B estimate is a total of just over $1 million, which equals about 536,000-ish each. Now, in discussions with you, if you can note, it's hard to read, but in the Class B estimate, the engineers included a 10% contingency, but this Class B estimate was done precluding the current state of the union, and he actually suggested that we increase our contingency by an additional 25%. And I wasn't completely sold on the idea of adding 35% contingency on the project, so I rounded it. I just picked 650, which works out to be an additional 21% contingency. That's just a number, and if you don't want to include it, you want to include 536 even. We'll take our chances. That's up to you guys. Like that. Next slide, please. And then this goes back to the previous discussion on the amortizing the project. This is what it would look like I just picked 5%. I put the rates change every day. Again, I picked amortization because it's just an easy number to keep the same amount every year. And I picked 10 years. But you pick whatever. Any questions?
Councilor Downey.
When did this bridge come on radar? Like,
2022, the Elizabethtown-Kitley and the Rio Lakes staff engaged TSI Inc. It was a result of their biannual OSIM reporting.
did they reduce the tonnage on that bridge?
They have not.
I think the circumstances were a little bit different. I don't think that there was an identified deficiency at the level, like there wasn't a crack or what have you. It was normal wear and tear and aging of the structure versus the other two bridges actually had an identifiable deficiency. In both cases. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, Councilor Brayton.
Yeah, how long are these bridges gonna last? How long are they good for? What's the lifespan on them?
I've heard anything from 60 to 75 years, but Mr. Metcalf, you're on it.
The CSP arch culverts, if you read the literature, says anywhere between 55 and 65 years. Concrete is 65 to 75 years. But when in discussion with the engineer, and this again is not on record and written stamped, we should be looking at at 40 years, be considering what we do next. That would be the benchmark of time to say, okay, we've got 40 years. Now let's start what we're doing, start planning, pre-planning then, instead of waiting until it gets to the point where you have to do it.
Thank you. I thought maybe it'd be good to know because I could start saving up.
Or, yeah,
Again, eh?
Councilor Renault.
Sorry. Town Line Road,
Yes.
basically, we just have to either yay or nay, and then Rio Lakes looks after the tender and everything else, right? They're looking after all of that side. We just basically have to say, we're doing it, or we're not. Okay, that's what I thought.
No, I will assist them as well. Like today, we both met to go over some of the details for the design piece, just so that I'm in the loop but the day-to-day operation of it would be through really. Yeah.
Councilor Ostrov.
At that rate, are we committed to paying a set price when we agree to it, or like you're talking this overage, or like I'm very uncomfortable with you're talking 25% leeway for contractors to work with that kind of a sleeve, and it's right on paper here. Man, I wouldn't give that away if I was working on a private deal. And so, I mean, if we agree with our neighboring township on a set price, and up to them to monitor and manage appropriately at that price. They finish a job and we pay our share, and that's it, but which is committed now.
Well, you're not exactly committing to the final dollar amount now. Again, this is just a budget number. It'll be whatever the contractors basically tell us it's going to be. And unfortunately, with the public process, this is how it works. Like we can't negotiate privately. Like we have to run open tender, and we have to go approve it a dollar amount ahead of time. For best case scenario, we're looking at $550,000 for our share. We're asking for the additional 21 or 25% contingency in case we're into a problem, so that we don't have to come back to ask you for more money for every change that may or in situation that may arise, because that gets more, it's cost prohibitive to do that. We have the procurement bylaw in place that sets the limits that I can approve, that the finance director can approve, that the CEO and the mayor can approve. If we get to those and it gets reported back to council, because if we don't do that and we get into a problem, then what could happen potentially would be a stop work, and then everything that's parked there you start paying for, and it's OPS for 127 rates, which is way more than what we charge ourselves for, and then your dollar figure starts ticking up.
It is a frustrating part of the public process, and part of it is that if we don't build in that contingency, and especially with the world that we're living in, those prices go up, we don't budget for it, then we end up with a deficit at the end of the year. Then people start asking the tough questions. It's unfortunately, it's a sandbox we play in. It's to our director, and then I'll get back to you.
And it's important to know that if we were putting an amount on the budget that we were gonna collect from the taxpayers, the full 1.2 million or whatever it costs to do it. And we've collected that money from taxpayers and haven't used it, that's a whole different scenario than creating construction lien based on, or construction loan based on these numbers and then not actually using them. It's just a number as a placeholder in case. Things are really crazy right now. We don't know what to expect. Staff will do their best to keep a lid on it and make sure they're vetting those change orders as they come, if they come. Do they make sense? No, it's not what we agreed to, like that's Royal and Josh's job to make sure that you keep the contractors in line and that they're not getting everything.
So I know you had a follow-up, Councilor.
Yeah, I believe, I'm comfortable with staff. I understand that they do a good job and monitor on our behalf. And, it's just that, and I'm comfortable getting his jobs done. I know it's time to do that. Where we're gonna go with that? Just, the companies that bid. I mean, I'm sure you also do that. But do you look at their past history? How many times they come up with projects and they over budget or they overspend? Do they have a history of that? Or is that not looked at all? Like, I mean, that's a lot of digging, but I think that's being responsible. I mean, is there a limited amount of people that do this job?
It's a
Will we get
special,
3 companies bidding on
it is a specialized field.
Yeah.
That you can structure a contract so that they have to provide references in past projects. I have seen it done that way. I don't know if that's how this one exactly is built. We haven't got quite that far yet. We're in between the 60 and 90% range. So that is in the next, hopefully 45 days, we get to that. We can include that as if you wish.
it? I'm sort of new at this still, that's all.
Yeah, no, it's fair.
I'm just trying to keep a lid on it.
Yeah.
I know you are too. but-
And we still have to our tender for it.
Yes.
So we're guessing
Yes.
at this point, based on engineer, based on staff, that this is what it's gonna cost. When you throw the tender out and say, this is what we need to do, give us your price, and the bridge builders are in competition with each other, you hope that they're going to give you their best price if they want the job. And then we have to compare. So we haven't committed to anything.
No.
It's just a build it in there because chances are they're gonna come back because of the way the world is right now.
Thank you.
And my experience has been that, I don't think we've ever had a case where a contractor came back and just said, oh, it turned out to be 20% more and didn't provide any justification. This is, death by 10 paper cuts, right? So at 10 points along the way, well, we need to use, 5% of that contingency because, and then they give a justification for it. And so I don't know if that provides you any comfort at all.
We're gonna try and hold them to their tender price. Hopefully it's less than what we budgeted.
Open mind, I just need to hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, I need to hear that.
Councilor Brickman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Who come up with this 25% contingency? That was both the engineering consultant. You'll see it in both reports. Just because the fluctuation in the potential steel.
25% tariff.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, that seems to me to be a little heavy for me.
Well, and that's the reality of it is the 25% on steel, the 10% on aluminum. They're on again, they're off again. They might double, they might be reciprocal, that's, everybody's standing on.
Our steel isn't coming from the States.
No, but our steel may go across the border, get tariff, processed in the States, and then the finished product may come back. And if we're doing retaliatory or reciprocal tariffs, it may get tariffed again on the way back. That is the nature of a trade
The
war.
tariff is not yet.
Yeah, crystal
Yeah.
ball.
Hey,
Yeah, the steel is.
no, it isn't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
steel and
yeah.
aluminum. Yeah,
You better check, I think.
absolutely. Believe me, I get updates on this every day.
Hey,
I get updates on this every day because of all the various groups that I'm involved with. And when it comes to the metals, they're on.
I thought it was first of April.
No, the metals are on. Councilman.
For you to, Roll, with regards to Bell or any other media internet providers. So they, is there anything that, like, do they run their own, conduit through, like, do we have to approve them to go through our bridge, the culverts?
Yes, through the process, we have what's called the municipal consent, which is a bit confusing because it's similar to the planning consent piece, but it's called municipal consent because anytime that they want to do any work in the roadway, anybody, they're supposed to fill it in an application and then we look at and approve it. Now, I have reached out to both Hydro and Bell to see if they wanted, for both structures, to see if they want to do some pre-planning and put some stuff in the ground now. Neither one wants to, but as part of there's a $63,000 provisional item in there, and that is for a temporary disconnect for the Bell and Hydro if the contractor needs it. And we're putting language in the contract that it'll be direct invoice to the township with a 5% markup to carry for any WSCB or coordination.
Okay.
So we're trying to do those things to try and just to touch on, to reassure Henry's point, we're also looking at both structures, adding in provisions for dewatering so that we're making the contractors bid it ahead of time. So it's not like, oh, well, we didn't bid it that way and this is what we're going to do and this is how much it's going to cost. We're saying, no, this is how you're going to dewater and how you're going to maintain flow. You're going to put another secondary culvert in, like that's a lot of high level detail, sorry, but those are all the things that we're looking at building into the contract so that it's.
Yeah, all right.
Councilor Down?
Did I hear you say that they may have to adjust the height of the culverts?
We need to confirm, no, we have to confirm the height of the Bell crossing over the culverts. Because if we have to do a grade raise, which they have to confirm, and he had at the 60% piece, he hadn't confirmed the load capacity and the rating for the cover over the steel arch culvert. So we may have to raise it by 0.5 meters. If we do, then that reduces the height clearance between the top of the road and the lower Bell cable. And I believe it's 13'1" is what it's classified at currently. And if we make a change to that, we can lower that, but then we have to file that with Transport Canada and it comes with a lot of process. Or we work with Bell and they would raise it and we keep it at the same level. And we don't have to notify anybody. It's just a matter of part of the construction. And we are in discussion.
You're talking the actual height of the culvert off the footing.
Nope, we're talking about the height between the top of the road and the underside of the bell wire that crosses the culvert. And I'm talking about the cover material over the top of the CSP arch and the driving surface. So I think right now it's shown at 0.5 meters. He thinks it might need to be a meter depending.
So the bottom
isn't
going to change.
No.
And then, so if you work with the Conservation Authority and they go in and they do what they do to get the fish out of there, I guess, right?
I guess, yeah.
I think they shock them and then they just take them in a bucket and move them. Is that something that you let the contractor deal with the Conservation Authority and then it falls under them?
It's going to be built into the contract for them to be responsible for it, yes.
Or is it the township that has to engage, like do the permitting through the conservation authorities and then follow up with it?
So just a point of clarification, the conservation authorities don't have anything to do with the fish. They'll take the information, they'll review it and say, yep, that's great. It's the Department of Fisheries and Oceans that looks after the fish. So we are in process of contacting them and we have a report, I forget the name of the report, but it's deals with all of those particulars and it is being built into the contract and it says has been sent to DFO for their comment to ensure that it does meet all the SARS requirements.
So that's part of the contract.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, so I'll refer back to the original motion, which is to receive the report, approve staff to proceed with this project in the 2025 season. And the third operative clause was that the capital expenditure of $650,000 be funded through a debenture from Infrastructure Ontario. I do note that, and this probably wasn't an accident, the particulars of how that gets debentured over what timeline and so on, those are not baked into the motion. But the motion that's on the floor is that the intention would be to debenture this somehow. So before I call the question, I just wanted council to understand what it would be voting on at this point. So with that understanding, any further discussion at this point before I call the question? Okay, not seeing any, so I'm gonna go ahead and call it then. All those in favor? And opposed, if any? Okay, thank you. That does carry. And so then the next item is 6.6, and that is with regards to the Lynn Valley Road Bridge replacement. A lot of similar information, but I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Mr. Metcalf.
Yep.
Oh, sorry, get the motion on the floor before we let you do that. So the motion is that the staff report PW 25-04 Lynn Valley Road Bridge replacement engineering and design be received for information. And that council approves staff to proceed with the replacement of the Lynn Valley Road Bridge in the 2025 construction season. And that the capital expenditure of $1,680,467.48 be funded through a debenture from Infrastructure Ontario. So very similar to the other one. So mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councilor Renault, seconded by Councilor Smith. Okay, with that, I'll turn the podium over to you.
Okay, this will be a little bit shorter because there's a lot of the same information. If you want to just go to the next slide, please. So this project started in 2022 as well. Safe Roads Engineering was contracted by the township. You guys went through the whole public information session. Like Mr. Mayor previously mentioned, you went through an iterative process of trying to pick the lines, and this is what you come up with. Now on here, with this approved general arrangement diagram, I would I'd like to note a change that I have requested. I've asked to add an additional 1.2 meters on either end of the culvert. So it's a total of 2.4 meters or 8 feet. This is for future consideration of an active transportation plan. So it gives us shoulder widths that we could either put a walking path or a bike lane or something, but it's also to assist with the existing bank tie-in, which you'll see in the next photo, because it's fairly steep. Go to the next slide, please. So they're trying to match to a 1.5 to 1 slope. So when in discussion with the engineer, if we extended the culvert length on either side, it would allow a better tie-in, and then they'd be able to line with some riprap and be less erosion. So it was good. But then it can also gives us the extra space to be able to tie in the village of Lynn down to County Road 2, which is off of close to the parkway, because then we could make a nice path. I'll just decide that. Similar, almost identical slide, the same critical path points. We're currently we had met with the Cataraqui Conservation Authority. You know, they committed to get this turned around for us as quickly as possible. They have all the documentation to review it. The consultant is formalizing the actual application, but they've been sent the documentation to review it before the actual application gets in, so that it's just a matter of format, and their comments will be included in the actual design. Again, same critical path goal of May 22nd to issue the tender. Next slide. Same critical path again. The idea again with having the tender close. Tender close on June 20th with a contract award of July 21st. Just if you're wondering, we're starting them both on July 21st, because if you do work before July 16th, there are measures that have to be put in place before. Two measures. One has to be in before the end of March 30th, and one has to be done before April 30th. And the first one is tree removal. You can't remove trees between March 30th and June 16th. And then the other one is the turtle fences to make sure that they don't get in. That's to be in before April 30th and up to July 16th. So we use the 21st as our critical starting point so that we can alleviate those costs in the contract and still satisfy all the environmental compliance. Next slide, please. Again, we're anticipating a construction start, contract award on July 21st, mobilization first couple weeks of July with the removals, having materials delivered on site middle of August, reinstatement, and hopefully November 15th to close out. A point that I didn't talk about in either one, which I'll address now, would be at some point in the process, we will have to discuss whether we're going to try and stage the work where we leave the lane open to traffic, or if we just shut the road down completely and let them do what they need to do. Now with Lynn Valley Bridge, I'd like to discuss the option of not completely finishing the job this year. What I'd like to see is we would do everything except for the surface. And then in 2026, pulverize and do the base and do the surface all at one continuous, because it would allow us to let the material around the bridge settle so that we don't get a bump at the approach and that they all gets tied in properly. Just thought, we don't have to, I can go carry through and get it done on the 30th, but just put that on the table. That wouldn't be a bad idea. Again, here's the cost breakdown. This is the Class B estimate. I didn't have a copy of the original one. I probably could find one more on the network, but it was around 1.5, I believe, is what they had originally quoted. It includes the 25% contingency. Yeah. And then this is how it looks for the debenture. And the other critical component of this is we haven't had the conversation yet, but we're looking to have communication with the county around the 127 Lynn Creek Bridge. They need to change that bridge. And if we were able to get this done this year ahead of their project, it would alleviate a 9.13 or 9.23 kilometer detour around Lynn for the bigger trucks and other traffic. So this is kind of why we want to push this one now if we can.
Just a quick footnote on that. I know we've been struggling to sort of find a hole in all of our schedules that lines up.
Yep.
But I was at the county's not long ago, spoke with the acting director of public works. And as soon as he heard why we were trying to get together in a little bit more detail, he was very, very receptive to doing what they need to do with their project to allow this to happen. So they're very much supportive and appreciative of the positive outcome that we're looking for the residents.
It works for everybody.
All right, so I will open up the floor for a discussion around this item. Councilor Smith.
Thank you. I do agree with Royal by letting the granular settle for a year. If you drive some of these roads and you see some of the asphalt work being done all at the same time, you go back the following year, you're gonna have a little of a dip.
Mm-hmm.
We live in the area of nature that you know, we have freeze and thaws, and so we might as well let it settle. Let's do it right. Don't want to go back and start digging up another year.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, so I'll go ahead and call the question on this one then. All those in favor? Any opposed, if any? Okay, thank you, that carries. Thank you for that. That concluded our staff reports. As it does. Okay, so we're into our committee reports now. For the motion is the following draft committee minutes be received. Public Library Board draft minutes dated February 19th, 2025. And Planning Advisory Committee draft minutes dated February 20th, 2025. Mover and seconder there, please. Moved by Councilor No, seconded by Councilor Oster. Any questions around either set of these minutes? Okay, not seeing any. I'll call it. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
It goes back to our borrowing, since we now just approved these two projects, which equates to a 2.33 million. If you're going to add the other bridge, I think you said was 500,000. Okay, potentially, and I think that's where you're coming up with the 2.84. Should we not be discussing that?
Well, I understand because there were no motions or discussion around that specifically prepared, and I may just have misinterpreted. I got the impression we needed to wait until that third item was at least better known than it is now before we finalize, but that may not be the case. Do you have any thoughts on that, Madam Director?
Yeah. I still could provide a guideline. We still need to bring back a budget.
Right.
Right, for approval to council. If I know I can build whatever is based on the discussion for the final approval and discussion at next council meeting. If we're ready, are we there?
Well, so following up on that, when I was reading the reports, it indicated that there wouldn't be financial impact to this budget for the debentures.
the only impact would be is if we do have to do the construction, we need to have a little bit of room to pay back interest.
Okay, I see.
So
Yeah.
if we added the 100,000 in,
Yeah.
that would cover that, plus go toward payments next year
Reducing.
Yeah.
and start getting.
So, I need to draw council's attention to the fact we also have a closed meeting item on the agenda for tonight. There may or may not be budget implications around that item. So how specific, if we're gonna add the 100,000, which I'm certainly not against, how specific do we have to get with what that 100,000 is going to be used for? Obviously, a small portion of it would be used for carrying interest on a construction loan, maybe up to half of it.
If I add it to the budget, I just add it as whatever you want me to add.
Okay.
It's not just capital.
Okay,
It's just increasing the capital. We can put it against bridges.
so I'm just wondering about the timing of this motion. I'm wondering if we need to wait until after the closed meeting, come out of close, once we've had that discussion, we know, because there may be a budget impact in that one. Then we could do the motion about what to do with this 100,000.
I mean, I can set it up to go in a reserve initially, and then that change can be made at the budget.
Okay,
If that's council's wishes.
Well,
okay, fair enough,
to
Councilor.
add to that, I think we should also throw in the carry forward, on this year's budget, plus the 100,000, that, clean that up. And hopefully we don't get into any deficits this year with extra gravel and all these other problems. We could put it behind us and we got these bridges is starting anew.
So 100,000 is 1.5%. If you wanted to add 100, we already allocated, so another 150. So you would be looking at 3% anyway,
Yep.
close to 3% added to what's added to the 5.46.
Yeah.
So that would put you overall at 80.
Which, if you read the papers, there's a lot of tax rate increases in the 8% range. I don't think he would be too far out of line.
No, that's certainly for council. Did I see you wanting to get in here, Mr. Administrator?
I did have my hand up, but I can't remember what it's for.
Oh.
Make a note next time.
Okay, I'll try and pay more attention to you, but we'll go to Councilor Russell.
Quite interested in either continuing this discussion or supporting it.
All right. Anybody else want in on that discussion? All right, so I guess if that is going to be the case, we'll need a motion then before we go too much further. If you can't really discuss something that doesn't exist yet.
Okay. You said that counties came in and we were down 1%.
So currently where it sits as of the meeting, the increase to our tax rate is 6.95%. When we add in the county's 5.11, because of the way it averages out over all of the assessment across the county, it brings the overall tax rate to 5.46%.
So we're down 1%.
Well, we are not, but the impact to the rate payers
Yeah.
is down 1% from what we thought it could be.
Okay.
Look at school board.
Yeah,
Stay the same.
okay. Yeah, so we're good. All right, so I will be looking then for a motion to include an additional $100,000 to a reserve
For bridge.
for construction. Bridge
Bridge construction.
Yeah, so again, I don't want to be a broken record. The only reason I'm a little hesitant to just be so specific with what it's directed towards is if we're gonna be that specific, I think we need to delay this motion until after we've had the closed meeting discussion, come back out and then feel comfortable that we don't need a portion of that 100,000 for something else, or I just don't know what's gonna happen. And unless council is comfortable to make that commitment now, and then potentially even add more maybe after the closed meeting, I don't know what's gonna happen.
Going to offer.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Administrator?
Yeah, your worship, I would really like to have the director of finance bring back a budget report, which includes all of these options for you, rather than us having a little bit here and having a little bit there. And let's have one report which has all of it outlined so that you can make decisions around each of these things.
Okay.
I think that would probably, and if anything, some of it comes out of the closed session, that can be incorporated into the.
Or anything with direction in closed session.
Yes.
So if I just go with what I know here.
Yep.
And then, after the closed session, if Rob has more direction for
Right.
me, then I will bring that back at the budget meeting as well.
Okay, fair enough. Council satisfied with that? Sounds like a good way forward. Okay, all right, thank you for that. Direction. So we were at the, so I think you've got the direction that you need now.
I think so.
What's that?
We were at the, and so what the director will have heard was that, you know, we have an appetite for the extra 100,000 to get on this journey towards the bridges. Councillor Downey floated the idea of let's clean up the deficit coming out of this current year and fold that in. And we think that that's going to get up into the 8% range at this point. So those are the major things that I think our director has taken away from tonight's discussion.
And one way or the other, you gotta pay that.
Well, yeah, that's the 8% that we were talking.
No, but you gotta pay that deficit.
Yes, correct.
One way or the other, you gotta pay it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting us back to where we were in the agenda, then we just received, just completed the motion around receiving the 2 sets of minutes. I don't think there were any questions or discussion around those minutes or the work.
It's not about the minutes, but about those topics.
Okay, fair enough. Probably now is a good time.
Okay, in the library situation, could I ask staff what our status is of finding another library board member?
Administrator?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and through the councillor, Mr. Hoff. We had one application when we advertised, we had one application. But I'm aware that the board had heard from another member of the public who wanted to be considered as well. And so we haven't been able to get confirmation that they're still interested in being on the board. So we'd like to be able to come back to you with one or hopefully two individuals to be able to fill that vacant position. But we really want to make sure that because the board were pretty clear that there was an individual who had expressed an interest. We just haven't been able to get back in touch with them to confirm it.
Okay. Any other questions around? Madam
The
Chair?
library board minutes. I also need to bring council's attention that the board is temporary, has basically said they're willing to take on reserve on. So I'm going to need to add a little bit to the library. So that's the sport.
Yes, go ahead.
If I just on that for a minute, the library board is adjusting to some changes and reality and the computer situation and the health of the age of the computers and the safety of operating them. And they're welcoming some of the information that staff has provided and how to improve. And as anything, it will cost a little bit of money. The library board is willing to use a portion of the reserve money that's set aside for the library. And our financial officer has a package of description of how we can work this out. And the library board is willing to go along with that. And just to say that it's going to cost a little bit all. But it's going to put us in a healthier situation when it comes to computer safety.
For sure.
And better, we can actually provide better service to our residents because of higher quality equipment and staff. It's all important.
Very good. Thanks for saying that. Mr. Administrator?
I seem to recall at the board, at the library board, that there was also discussion of a user fee for non-residents. And if we approve that, we'll obviously have to update our user fee bylaws and make sure that that's incorporated into.
Yeah, I'd like for council to have a little bit of information around that. I don't have a problem with it. I just want to make sure that we don't unwittingly set off a bit of a nuclear reaction. I know at one time the township had a reciprocal agreement with Brockville and its libraries. I understand that over the years that eventually went away, and so I just think we need to understand the implications, if any, and hopefully the report says there are no implications to doing this. Great, but I just don't want us to say, oh yeah, that's fine, and treat it as something simple if it's not. That's okay.
And that's fair, and those little, not, or minute details in the background, I'm not clearly, I don't have his historical references, but the discussion there indicated that we had reciprocal agreements with, local townships, but not with Brock.
Right.
But if you want a document proving saying that, you want backup.
Oh, I just want some, yeah, I mean, if we have a document, great. It might be a set of minutes or what have you. It's just I was aware that the landscape used to be a certain way, and I had the impression that it had changed over the years. I couldn't tonight point you to anything one way or the other to say, yes, we still have an arrangement, or no, we definitely don't. But if there's an opportunity to provide that clarity, I think it would be good.
We'll ask again.
Sure.
But, yeah, that's fine.
Alrighty.
Sorry,
and-
also in the minutes was the transfer to reserves that was left in the books. Looking for.
Yep.
It's an annual request.
Yep, so I've got some motions coming out of the
Oh,
minutes. That's
Sorry.
fine. Nope, that's okay. So the first motion coming out of the minutes from the library then is the council approves the library board's request to have leftover book money from 2024 put into library reserves. So I'm looking for a mover and seconder there, please. Councilor Smith, second by Councilor Renault. Any discussion on that one? Okay, all those in favor? Carries, thank you. Also from the library board minutes, and this may get tabled. And more information is the council approves Elizabethtown-Kitley libraries charging a $40 non-residence user fee per year as of May 21st, 2025. And the council directs staff to prepare a bylaw to amend bylaw 24-66, the township's consolidated fee bylaw accordingly. So do we have a mover and seconder for that tonight, or Councilor Smith?
I'll comment. I think we should table that until we hear back from staff after they do some research to see if our residents are being charged or not. Going back many years ago when I was on the library board, we did have reciprocal agreements with Brockville and with the other municipalities, and that's where we had the book sharing as well. And so I'm not sure now if there is a charge for our residents, but I think we should just take this until staff.
Yeah, I would like to, if somebody is willing to move a tabling of the motion, because as it's written, there isn't that much clarity around what defines a non-resident. If in fact we have these reciprocal agreements with neighboring municipalities, but we don't with Rockville, then I think we need a little bit of wordsmithing around the motion to make that clear that wherever there is not an agreement in place, that we have a non-resident user fee. So so you're gonna move to table this pending further information. Do I have a seconder for that then? A second by Councilor Brayton. All those in favor of tabling that carries. Thank you. Good initiative. We just need to refine it a bit. Okay, coming out of the planning advisory minutes are the following motions. First one is the severance B-1-25, a vacant lot on County Road 1, concession 1, part lots 34 through 38, geographic Elizabethtown, owner of NAP, as detailed in the minutes on pages 1 to 4, be approved. I'm looking for a mover and seconder there, please. Moved by Councilor Smith, seconded by Councilor Downey. Any discussion around this item? Okay, all those in favor? Carries, thank you.
I don't know. That's not.
Pack minutes. The zoning bylaw amendment Z-10-24, it's a vacant lot at Pleasant Lane, concession 5, part lot 28, geographic Elizabethtown, owner of Murphy, as detailed in the minutes on page 4. Excuse me, be approved. Mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Osterhoff, seconded by Councillor Riddle. Any discussion around this one? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, if any? Okay, carries. Also from the PAC minutes, the zoning bylaw amendment Z-07-24 regarding 2934 Second Concession Road, Concession 2, Park Commons Lot A, geographic Elizabethtown, owner of Hall, as detailed in the minutes on pages 5 and 6, be approved. Mover and seconder for that one, please. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Renault. Any discussion around this item? Okay, all those in favor? Carries, thank you. Okay, this brings us to the next section of our agenda. And that is bylaws. So we do have two bylaws this evening. The motion is that the mover be granted leave to introduce bylaws number 25-15, 25-16. 25-15 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 13-21 as amended regarding Pleasant Lane. Bylaw 25-16 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 13-21 as amended regarding 2934 Second Concession Road. And this shall constitute the first and second reading thereof. So move the seconder for those readings, please. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Downing. Any discussion around those? Okay, I'll call that. All those in favor? Carries, thank you. Moving on to a third reading of those same two. The motion is that bylaws number 25-15, 25-16 be given third reading and finally passed, signed, and numbered accordingly. Mover, please. Moved by Councillor Brayton. Seconder, please. Seconded by Councillor Smith. All those in favor? Carries. Thank you. Okay, we are on to correspondence. The motion is that correspondence items 1 and 2 be received and filed, and that direction to staff be provided. So mover and seconder on those, please. Moved by Councillor Brayton, seconded by Councillor Osterhoff. Regarding 9.1, this is a letter from the United Counties, just an update regarding the redevelopment of the long-term care facility in Athens. Any discussion there? Okay, and 9.2 is a sponsorship request from Brockville Skate. Received late February, bit of a tight timeline there. Any discussion around this item? Councillor Smith?
Your worship, through you to staff, I know we don't have swag, but do we have anything that we can provide people in a loot bag? Like, we used to have maps, nice to have people to move to the township, or lapel pins. I just don't know if we have anything that we can offer.
We have old maps, but the pins are all gone and none have been ordered with the rebranding.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussion around this item? Okay. Yes, we will leave it at that. So I'll go ahead and call the question on the correspondence then. All those in favor of receiving those and filing? That carries. I guess by implication, other than Councillor Smith's question, the direction is, I guess we won't be supporting that this year. All right. So that brings us, I believe, to information items. Yes, does any member have an information item to share with us this evening? Okay, seeing any? Henry, did you put your hand up?
No.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, you got information items, so you got pancake breakfast. I think Councillor Renault will bring that up. I'll be here to it. Pancake breakfast out in Toledo on the
Gotta get the calendar.
Saturday, last Saturday.
And the first Saturday.
That's correct. Last Saturday in March, first Saturday in April.
So that'll be March 29th and April 5th.
There you go.
For the 2 days.
Hosting?
Toledo at the United Church, right?
It's the Anglican Church and the church.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other announcements? Councillor Brayton?
I just told Henry tonight, but yeah, I guess you knew it, but anyway. My next door neighbor, Jim Laverty, he's on the library board.
Hang on, you might be sharing some personal information that
I don't think that's public. Right?
may not be public yet.
Oh, okay.
But thanks for introducing us to your neighbor.
He's my neighbor.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
I'm glad we know that.
I'm glad that I told you.
Any other information items? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on then to motions and notices of motion. Does any member have a notice of motion to give us tonight? Okay, not seeing any, public question period. We have no public here with us.
Could I ask a question? Just wondering how our winter control, do we have any updates on, did we fall within the budget so far, or are we gonna blow that out of the water because of overtime and salt and whatnot this year?
Well, the good thing is the winter budget started January 1st, so we're just really in it. And we haven't even come close to spending it all.
Well, you got till next
We
December.
got till next December.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So we're doing well on it. You guys have been pretty good. It's been busy for the guys. They have put in a lot of hours, but it's all necessary to do for the, so we've had.
yeah,
Jared-
no, I'm
Jared
just
Weiser,
kind of,
right?
are we, last year, how did we make out overall? Do you remember? It was pretty good, right?
Yeah.
We were way under last
Yeah.
year because
This year's probably
winter
higher than that.
But does that carry forward at all? Any of,
no,
what was left over in last year's winter budget?
We
Or
used-
up?
we used it to offset the overages in travel and other stuff to get to the final bottom.
So there's nothing that's like, we're gonna have to plug into the extra 250 that we're putting on because of,
No, but
storms.
But the smart thing is, I don't think that we lowered the winter control budget based on the fact that we had such a good good year. Last year, we didn't say, oh, well, we don't need to be budgeting that amount. I think we're pretty smart about making sure we always start with a decent amount, just in case we get hit with something like we did this year, so. Councilor Smith?
Now, with regards to spring, we've got a lot of spring runoff right now, and thanks to our staff. Today, they went back out to Kilkenny Road to correct some ditching issues over there. There was water running onto other properties and everything else. So thank you for staff for doing that. And it's time of year, spring thaw, freeze tomorrow, who knows what's gonna happen the next day, but it's they're the extras as well that staff are doing. So thank you.
All righty, so Madam Deputy, did we receive any public questions? Okay, nothing online. So that brings us to our closed meeting, which we do have this evening. The motion is that the regular council meeting adjourn at 8:47 PM for a closed meeting regarding one matter under section 239, subsection 2K, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or the board, specifically contracts for recycling services. I need a mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Councilor Renault, seconded by Councilor Brayton. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. And so we will end our live stream here. I will report out. We won't go live again. We'll report out in the minutes with the results of the closed session.